businessman and TV talk show host, Stephan Reis. Pleasant good evening. Always a pleasure to have you on. How are you, sir?
Just fabulous, Mikey. Good evening to you. Good evening to your audience.
No, you had to be better. You had to be better than. You had to be better than good evening. You know, the bell ring. You know, people on the ground talking. The bell ring. You know, you had to be better than good evening, man.
Now, well, the bell ring, and everybody. You know, I listened to all the little conversations taking place in the little corners and pockets. You know what I mean? And interesting. It's gonna be an interesting 40 days or so.
No, as far as messaging, because I mean, I look at all that you post on social media. I mean, you're always trying to, try to look for the logic in things that, confuses the electorate and the average citizen. Making sense of what took place. I know you tried to do that. From Sunday, launch of candidates, Prime Minister retire. Monday, putting in Prime Minister select. Shuffle in cabinet, and Tuesday the announcement of the election date. Have you looked at this, and what does it all mean?
Well, first off, I can't understand. I can't see the logic in it. Nothing that occurred between Sunday and Tuesday we could say was logical, because okay, if you know that the election was going to call this early, or that they had the intention of calling the election this early, then why would Keith Rowley step down? That's one. Right? Secondly, you come, you screen all your candidates, you present your candidates. The former Prime Minister says he's stepping down, but he's still remaining leader of the party. Minister Young sworn in on Monday. Do a whole reshuffle, like you said. And a reshuffle that really, I mean, you could have seen it was confusing and all, because, I mean, look at the position Camille Robinson-Ricci's got. She was appointed Attorney General, and from what we understand, I saw an article in the Newsday where Israel Khan was saying that she doesn't have any experience in a courtroom, and she doesn't have a practicing law certificate and things of that nature. So I don't know how we could appoint somebody like that to Attorney General. Marvin Gonzalez going over to national security. I know he was with SORT back in the day, and then he was legal advisor to, I think it was the Ministry of Works and Transport, and then he was elevated to Minister of Public Utilities. And this is the same man who tell people don't eat macaroni pie. He's the same fella that said that, right?
Yeah. Cut back. Right. You don't need all that. Cut back.
Cut back. He's also the same fella that said that he didn't know that a leaking pipe could affect the water pressure in the pipe.
That's right.
This is the same guy that said these things, right? And they put him in the Ministry of National Security. Fitzgerald Hines is the missing man in action, although he was moved to the office of the Prime Minister, but still, his absence, I think it was on Sunday, when they unveiled all the candidates. I think he was absent at that particular event, which raised some eyebrows. We don't know. I mean, it's Fitzgerald Hines we're talking about, the most dedicated PNM in the history of PNM, So, I mean, for him to be absent at that event, an event of that kind of stature, is a bit confusing.
Yeah.
But he wasn't there. And then you have him moving to public utilities. And I think I said on my show, some people were saying, well, how do you move him to public utilities from Ministry of Finance? And I said, well, you had to remember, since last year, or maybe I think it was last year or year before, they've been talking about increasing the electricity rates and the water rates. And Inbut is the man who in for it to get your hand dirty and tell you had to pay more for everything. I mean, we see that over the last 10 years with him as Minister of Finance. He removed the gas subsidy how much other times. He taxed the living daylights out of citizens. He achieved the property tax, the 4% wage increase for public servants. I mean, all of these things tied to Inbut. I ain't going to talk about the audit report and the Auditor General, right? So all these little things tied to Inbut. So they put him in public utilities. So I suspect that if they were to win the election on the 28th, you could expect increased electricity rates and water rates. What was the other significant move they made?
Well, when you look at it, Stephan, I mean, and you're correct. I mean, we just basically saw a cosmetic sort of change, more of a political illusion that really and truly didn't add up. Now, taking everything that was done over the 9+ years, what strong messaging would you advise? Especially for the UNC going into this general election, that can actually give them that leverage that they clinch it on April 28th?
Well, the first thing, I think this is not an election for personal attacks, like in the past. In the past, I believe it was in 2015, when they ran the No Rowley campaign. I don't know if you could remember that, but that didn't go down well with people, right? And it sort of led to sympathy for Keith Rowley, right? Which kind of propelled him into the politics. People didn't like that campaign. Then in 2020, I mean, look, let me talk it real, right? Kamla Persad-Bissessar is still the opposition leader. And I have been hearing, Kamla should step down and this, that, and the other. And people may be intensifying that talk because they see that Rowley step aside and Stuart Young was elected. But if we really being honest and true, in 2015, if we could remember well, they did not extend the voting time by an hour and only notify one party. You could remember that?
Yeah.
Right. Fast forward to 2020, where there was ballot something thrown in the bush and the opposition was raising several discrepancies in the election, and nobody was listening to them. It fell on deaf ears because we was in the middle of a pandemic and everybody was afraid to come outside because if you sneeze, people thought they would have had a gun by a cough and put their family 6 feet under. So look, everybody was afraid because of this virus, COVID-19. And in 2020, there were some things that were questionable that took place. International observers, I see that the opposition leader is calling for international observers again. She didn't get it from the former prime minister. I don't know if she'll get it from this one. But there have been, for all intents and purposes, some sketchy results in terms of election integrity over the last 2 elections, right? And Kamla, unfortunately, has been on the losing end of that, and people have kind of taken that, ran with it. Well, not people, but the PNM, and rightfully so, because this is the narrative they created, is that she can't win. And I think they've said that so much that it has created doubt in people's mind as to if she really can win. But this election have nothing to do with Kamla Persad-Bissessar, right? So I'll just give you a little history.
Right.
Because there have been elections in the past where the focus has been sort of like the Kamla mania heights that they were on in 2010, and they were still trying to sell Kamla. I think the slogan that I see they have now is when UNC wins, everyone wins. I think it's something to that effect.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that is where the marketing strategy needs to be. It doesn't need to be on one individual. It needs to be about the party itself, what it is presenting, and what it could do for the country. So, in terms of messaging, you ask, it have several things that the UNC should be focused on, especially with Minister Young as Prime Minister. Because when we're talking about Prime Minister, we're talking about somebody who is a leader, right? And I think people in Trinidad and Tobago need to understand what leadership is and leadership qualities, because we're lacking that plenty. So there has been several incidents where, unfortunately, for the current Prime Minister, he didn't shine as a leader. I'll start with the worst one, okay? We have divers trapped in our pipeline, and he is the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs. He had the power to at least say, here what's going on. I understand the concerns, but we need to at least try. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Had you tried to rescue these men, and failed, fine. But to not even attempt to not even to attempt a rescue. You understand what I'm saying? Even after one man come out of the pipeline, you had proof of life. That now should have given you the confidence to say, okay, if we have proof of life, let's go. The man said the rest of them down there, they're alive. Let me go. Nobody made a move. Everybody stood still. Nobody in that room that was deliberating or drafting up or drawing up whatever on a whiteboard or a blackboard. You telling me that nobody had the leadership skill or will to make a decision? It's the most horrifying thing that I think I have ever come across in my 47 years of life. Because I try to picture men trapped in a 30-inch or a 36-inch pipe?
36-inch, yeah.
Below the ocean, in darkness, injured, falling out to each other. We heard the audio. It was that's a terrifying thing. Christopher Boudram to come out of that, to climb out of that alone, that journey to get out of there alone. He should have got a national award for that and more, and compensation. And that's the next thing too. The Prime Minister has been part of a government and at the head of a ministry that is responsible for compensating the family of these divers, and they have not gotten any compensation yet. The family of these divers been left out there to roam aimlessly, you understand, and deal with their trauma. And you telling, and we looking at this individual as a leader. But these are examples of failed leadership. I could take you back now. We're going back, eh? I start with the worst and I'm going back. You remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, you could remember who the Minister of National Security was?
We had was it the Prime Minister now?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And he made the decision to reject Trinidad nationals from coming home.
That's right.
They locked Trinidad citizens of Trinidad and Tobago were locked out of this country and left in foreign lands to roam aimlessly with no assistance. You remember the AG in Barbados during that period of time when he went on the news and he said, we were pleading with Trinidad to take their nationals, but they don't want to take them, so we will take them. And is Barbados take some of them? I think they were on a cruise ship or a flight or some kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Right.
And not only that, Stephan, don't forget the MP in the UK who was confused as to, why wouldn't Trinidad take these nationals? I think that MP had to go and get toiletries and assistance to our own nationals. Yeah, you're right. When you start to think about it, yeah.
So if you are the Minister of National Security and you hold that role, and you're in a unique situation of a pandemic being declared, okay? Is it not good leadership to come up with a plan to absorb or accept your own nationals into the country in a manner which, okay, you have safety concerns because of health issues and things with the pandemic and the virus and whatever, but isn't it proper leadership to come up with a plan so that you could get your people home? That's your people. A leader does not abandon his people. The captain does go down with the ship, not so?
That's right. And then when you have a former prime minister telling us that his family member got in on the tail of an iguana, I think that was his statement.
Something like that.
Yeah, on the tail of an iguana, they were able to come in, and then you had some that was missing, and when you start to add things up, they left the country, they were outside vacationing and whatever. It's so overwhelming when you start to go back and connect all that has taken place with the failure of this administration.
Mikey, this is why I'm going back, because people forget.
Yeah.
This is not about 2 months of performance. This is not about 2 weeks of performance. This is not about Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. This is about a history, because we are saying, or they are saying, the PNM, that this is the leader. This is the man that they're presenting to lead the nation. So you had the pandemic, outside of the pandemic and outside of him personally with that situation, remember Delcy Rodriguez coming in the country too?
Yes.
With 5 pay visa, right? The then Prime Minister say he don't know them people, but they walk in the diplomatic center. Inclusive of that, they created segregated safe zones. They put people in a position of losing their livelihood, their jobs, because they didn't want to take a job. And they were trying to force them into taking these things. And for that, people had to lose their job. And you remember that?
You really have to revisit.
Pushback.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You really have to revisit. That's right. I was detained. Yes, I was detained along with several individuals who were detained. It makes you wonder. At that time, you say, listen. Now that you go back and you think about it, you say, listen, this was a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. It's like you just had to psychologically have some transition away from that. Otherwise, one, you would have gone mad, or two, no telling what kind of activity you might have found yourself involved in, and people read about you on the front page. Because it was a lot of disrespect. It was a lot of disrespect, and I agree with you. The messaging has to be wholly and solely on the citizenry, the people who had to endure all of that disrespect for the last 9 years. When you're a leader, what gives you the freedom that you feel you could disrespect the very said people that you're there to represent?
Exactly. You remember public servants. Public servants was some of the most resistant forces during that period of time, and people will perceive that public servants is more PNM voters. We can agree on that?
Yeah, that's the perception.
Right? And those were the ones that was pushing back. They didn't want to take the job. Those were the ones that was resisting and standing up against their own government that they vote for. You must remember that you was out there. I know I didn't forget that.
That's right.
Right? We could go back even a little further to 2018 when we had the influx of Venezuelans coming into the country. Remember that when we started to take Venezuelans in?
That's right.
The current Prime Minister here was the Minister of National Security in charge of that process.
He was leading that charge at the Oval.
And you remember the chaos?
Yeah.
It was totally out of control. It had people protesting across the road. It was madness. And on top of that, they never really got a handle on absorbing or accepting the Venezuelans and then regularizing them to the quantity in which they said they were going to take. They kept saying it's only 16,000 or something to that effect, right?
That's right.
Now, let me fast forward to where we are now, because I take you back to when he was Minister of National Security, the mismanagement of the influx of the Venezuelans.
All right, we have about 2 minutes, so let's bring it in.
And now we have a crime problem, because we're looking at talking points, because you have to connect all,
Yeah.
So that crime problem that has developed over that period of time, where we have the highest ever murder rate in the country, and everybody looking at Fitzgerald Hines, and he's a colossal failure and the captain of incompetence. But we had to go back to 2018 with the influx of Venezuelans, because we can't say that they don't have some of them running around committing crime right now, because they can't get a job, they're being exploited, they never get properly absorbed into no system. So how they feeding themselves? You have an open border and they're coming across like willy-nilly, like nobody business. We never lock down the border, we never secure the border. It's total mismanagement. It's chaos, it's just madness in this place. So the crime situation as well, I know I'm time limited, a crime situation as well is one that the opposition had to keep the messaging on, the home invasions, the murder rate, things like that. And just the fact that this has been failed leadership for the last 10 years. And total mismanagement. Forex issues, the forex issues, the property tax, and the economy on the whole. All of these, this is where the messaging is supposed to be. And you see the slander and the old talk and the pinpointing an individual and attacking and I don't think that needed here. They had to stick to the issues and just show the people, vote for us, and this is where we will get you over the next 5 years, 10 years, so on and so forth. And if they do that and they get our messaging correct, I think, this will be a foregone conclusion.
I want to agree with you. Vote on your experience. And it has not been a good experience for many of us. We live it on a daily basis, and you're right. And for those who can't remember, we started bringing it all back to them because it was a lot. And you know, when people go through very traumatic issues, that they seem to want to hide it away and push it away because just remembering it, you know, it gives you that sense of, my God, it was not the best of times. But no, wherever you have it hidden in your psyche, you need to bring it out. Because you may not want to, you certainly don't want to experience it again. And the reason, and the thing about it, the only how you're not going to experience it again is the fact that you've learned from it. You learn from the fact that failed leadership puts you in a bad situation. Very, very bad situation. Exactly. And I agree with you. Any message moving forward has to be about the fact of the failure for the past 9+ years. Personal attacks, I don't think there's much traction there. But my gosh, the fact of the matter is that what you've lived for the last 9+ years, that alone should be enough. You want to live better? The bottom line is, Stephan, we all want to live better, you know.
Exactly.
We all want to live better.
Public servants want to get a pound of flesh with a justifiable increase. You understand what I'm saying? They can't live off of that increase. That was an insult to them, especially coming out of a pandemic where they praised them for the work. Yeah. You remember that?
I remember.
They praised them.
Yeah.
And then come and tell them 4% for 6 years.
And I tell her cookies or biscuit.
And yeah, he tell her biscuit.
Yeah, yeah. Tell her, yeah. We love you. You did well. You saved lives. Hold that tin of biscuit. Disrespect again. Disrespect. Again. Hey, I want to thank you so much as always, my friend. We will, of course, be covering this campaign. I will be checking in with you. Thank you again, and best of luck. Let's make sure that things go well on April 28th.
All right, man. No problem.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.